Jewish immigration from Western Europe to Israel has reached an all-time high. It's because of rising anti-Semitic attacks. A leading nonprofit group called the Jewish Agency reports 9,888 Jews from Western Europe moved to Israel last year, mostly from France. That's more than 10% higher than 2014 and double the figure from 2013.
The attacks are becoming more and more violent, and the way people are getting used to anti-Semitism, and considering that anti-Semitism has to be lived with and is not something that you can fight against. The violence of the threat has been obviously noted in the killings that happened 2 years ago in Toulouse, where children were shot in a school. 2 months ago, the attack in the Jewish Museum of Brussels was perpetrated by a French gunner. And the particularity of these past weeks is that we have witnessed attacks of large groups of people heading at synagogues, heading at Jewish quarters, trying to harm Jews. And in the past, we had more observed individual attacks, and now we are seeing phenomenon of attacks by large groups of people.
So how many kids are at this school?
More than 1,000 children.
More than 1,000?
Yeah.
It's quite a surprising thing, really, to walk into a school and see such huge guns with all these children around.
Effectivement, ça peut paraître surprenant, mais pour nous, ce n'est plus vraiment surprenant, c'est une habitude de voir les soldats nous entourer. En tous les cas pour les écoles juives, mais aujourd'hui, il n'y a plus que les écoles juives qui sont protégées, et cela va au-delà. Et nous avons tout un système de sécurité, que ce soit des caméras, que ce soit un système de vidéosurveillance, des gardiens, tout ce qu'il faut pour des sas de sécurité, comme vous l'avez vu en rentrant. Nous avons des parents aussi qui ont un regard sur ce qui se passe à l'extérieur. Ils ne font pas de la sécurité, ils regardent un peu ce qui se passe. Et s'il y a quelque chose d'anormal, ils nous le signalent.
This is the world. This is the US. This is the UK. And that tiny spot there is Israel. This is Gaza. In 2005, the Israeli government decided to give the residents of the Gaza Strip the freedom to control themselves, and so decided to remove all of its citizens and military forces out. Israel out, Hamas in. Yes, that Islamic terror group, them. So now Hamas has control. How do they help their poor suffering brothers? By building universities? No. New hospitals? Nope. High tech? Yeah, sorta. They invested the world's money in missiles, thousands and thousands of missiles, which are continuously shot on Israeli civilians, men, women, and children.
Under the Turkish Ottoman Empire, overlord of the area from the 16th century, there was no administrative or political entity called Palestine. In Article 24, the PLO explicitly asserted that Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, the territories which it now claims for its desired state, were not Palestinian. Article 24. This organization does not exercise any territorial sovereignty over the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan or on the Gaza Strip. In 1968, the PLO rewrote its charter. This time, the definition of Palestine did not exclude Gaza, Judea, and Samaria, so the PLO was now claiming these territories. What explains the change? In 1964, when the PLO wrote its first charter, Egypt was illegally occupying Gaza, and Jordan was illegally occupying Judea and Samaria. Zahir Muhsin, the chief of military operations of the Palestine Liberation Organization, or the PLO, now better known as the Palestinian Authority. In an interview with Dutch magazine Trouw, Muhsin explained, "We are all part of one people, the Arab nation. We are one people. Just for political reasons, we carefully underwrite our Palestinian identity. because it is of national interest for the Arabs to advocate the existence of Palestinians to balance Zionism. Yes, the existence of a separate Palestinian identity exists only for tactical reasons. The establishment of a Palestinian state is a new tool to continue the fight against Israel and for Arab unity.
In November 1947, the UN voted to create two states. Again, the Jews accepted the offer, and again, the Arabs rejected it. Only this time, they did so by launching an all-out war. Rejection number 2. Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria joined the conflict. But they failed. Israel won the war and got on with the business of building a new nation. Most of the land set aside by the UN for an Arab state, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, became occupied territory. Occupied not by Israel, but by Jordan. 20 years later, in 1967, the Arabs, led this time by Egypt and joined by Syria and Jordan, once again sought to destroy the Jewish state. The 1967 conflict, known as the Six-Day War, ended in a stunning victory for Israel. Jerusalem and the West Bank, as well as the area known as the Gaza Strip, fell into Israel's hands. The government split over what to do with this new territory. Half wanted to return the West Bank to Jordan and Gaza to Egypt in exchange for peace. The other half wanted to give it to the region's Arabs, who had begun referring to themselves as the Palestinians, in the hope that they would ultimately build their own state there. Neither initiative got very far. A few months later, the Arab League met in Sudan and issued its infamous 3 no's. No peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, no negotiations with Israel.
Only Israel's Arab citizens enjoy real democratic rights.